I remember very well one of my first trail ultras, which I did at the Quebec Mega Trail 50K. Well, 50K, it's just a bit more than a marathon. I've done loads of those. So, how much is there to it really? Well, there was some challenging trails and quite a lot of hills. I think ultra runners call that technical. I think they use the word technical so you don't get scared of the hills and the mud and all the stuff you've got to wade through. But I was in pretty good form. However, I was totally ignorant of things like fueling plans and pacing on trails. And I went great for about 35K, and then I hit the wall really, really hard. And I was far, far from an aid station. I started to walk, and I had to walk for long periods. I was pretty depressed because I got overtaken by dozens of people. And I came in at the end looking rather sad and pretty feeble. I learned a lot of lessons that day, but I could have learned them a lot easier if I just read today's book. So hi, and welcome to Running Book Reviews podcast, where we review running books to help you decide if you'd like to read the book for yourself. We also hope listening to us chat about running can keep you motivated about your own running. Or maybe it'll just inspire you to look at something different or try something new. My name's Alan, and with my co-host Liz, we're going to talk with author Tim Wills about his book, The Ultra Mile, The Joy, Freedom, and Opportunities of Running.
The Ultra Mile describes what goes into running the ultra distances, why something so difficult is also appealing, and how really long distances like 100 miles are really a team effort. The book is divided into 6 parts: running, preliminary training, the application of training, training to simulate racing, running ultra, the journey continues. And there are some pretty good stories in the last couple chapters where the author talks about his own ultra experiences. A little bit about the author. So Tim Wills is an ultra runner that has run races 100 miles and longer. He's a coach and offers consultations and online coaching to runners. He's an entrepreneur with a website offering running-related products and services. The website is gotheultramile.com. We'll link it in the show notes. He's also a physical therapist assistant, so has in-depth knowledge about the human body and how running affects it. So we're pleased to welcome you to the podcast, Tim.
Yeah, thanks guys for having me on.
So how did you decide to write this book?
So yeah, that's interesting. I've always done a lot of reading. I've always enjoyed running, being active. In the January of 2020, I remember I never planned to write a book that year, but I remember thinking to myself, you know what? I've always wanted to write a book. I've always kind of mentally saved it for retirement. But the time came. I was really enjoying my running. I feel my running was beginning to take shape, take direction of where I was hoping it would go. And I was so excited about that. It just inspired me to write about it. So I just decided, well, let me just start trying to write a book. No experience. I don't know any authors that could have helped me along the way, but I thought it can't hurt to start writing, So it took off from there.
Did it help that then there was a pandemic, or was that not really had you already pretty well started before that?
That's a very interesting question. I do think it might have helped, because I do think it might have been something that I could turn to and kind of relieve some stress. Working in the healthcare field, it was very stressful, of course, with everything going on and with the family life. I do think the running definitely helped me in different ways that year that it had in previous years. I looked at it more therapeutically, and then also gravitating towards the writing on the side. I guess when I sat down and started writing, it kind of took me away from some of that stress too. So it was a help, yeah.
I was running with Liz on some training, and she was all excited about this book because she'd started the book before I did. And she said to me, Alan, do you know the the word run has 645 different meanings. I learned that from Tim Wills's book. So what was that all about? How did you get into that?
Yeah, so that's very interesting. When I started writing the book, I didn't exactly start there. I just started writing various topics, but I did recall a memory back in elementary school where my punishment for lying to my after school care teacher that I was done with all my homework, I wanted to go play outside because it wasn't done like I had said. He punished me by making me write the definition of run. And he told me it was the longest definition in the dictionary. And it always stuck with me, but when I started writing this book, a bit into it, I remembered that story and I decided to start doing some research. And that's what I came across. I couldn't believe it.
In the book, you mention running can be an artistic pursuit. I always thought that running, runners have kind of this type A personality reputation that we really just like numbers and concrete goals and like that's actually kind of how I've always seen myself as a runner. I've always liked, numbers, goals. I like that it was objective that way, but you kind of put a different spin
or maybe
on it.
science, I guess. Yeah. You have science, biology, you have the physiology, those kind of things. So it's maths and science.
Yeah, no, I just decided to try and get a bit creative with the book. And one of the I guess philosophies I had was maybe running could be artistic, maybe, I feel art is a way people express themselves. And I feel running is the way I have maybe tried to express myself in a way. I'm very passionate about it. I'm very driven. I'm very determined and goal oriented. And I just feel I've used kind of running to satisfy some of those areas in my life. And I do feel it's a bit artistic, going out there and calculating all the things with the numbers and the times and the distance. And, it's a way of expressing myself.
I guess coaching could be kind of like your artistic side as well, because, coaches know that they can't really always apply the same exact training to every runner. You have to sort of tailor it based on their response.
Yeah, and I feel perhaps I've worked in healthcare 7-8 years, and having patient caseloads of 10, 12 patients a day, all of different levels of function, all with different backgrounds, different capabilities, different goals. I feel it's helped me with my coaching because, I understand running, but yeah, how do we apply giving somebody else direction to try and meet their goals? Yeah, I do feel some of my experience in healthcare and dealing with a lot of different personalities and different goals and everything has kind of helped me with my coaching as well.
I guess you have a whole lot of experience and familiarity with the subject, and then you have to apply it in a specific way in a specific situation. So to that extent, you could align yourself with somebody who's artistic, who has a massive amount of skill and experience in a subject, but then is faced with a new canvas, either somebody to train or maybe an event, and you've got to paint your picture or make your sculpture, create your event, drawing upon all of that knowledge. I've never really thought about it like that, but I'm just thinking about it now as you're explaining it to me. Kind of makes sense, especially if you're going a long way where the sort of the physical effort kind of falls into the background to some extent. It becomes a mental effort. As we learned a few weeks ago when we were talking with Adi Bracey about mental training in ultra running, it becomes a cerebral type of activity, I guess.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I've learned a lot about myself mentally and physically, and it definitely pushes boundaries that I want to learn more about. And truthfully, that's what I'm after ultimately, is I want to learn more about myself and perhaps what I'm capable of.
with respect to goals, because we were a little bit on that topic, so you do mention that sometimes setting goals is not easy. So it's a bit of a balance between having a goal that is too far out of reach and having one that's too easy, because you mentioned that we need to be a little bit scared that we might not accomplish our goal. Why is that important?
I feel for myself, I like to set goals that I don't like to set myself up for failure. And I don't like to set myself up to pour a lot of time and effort into something that I know there's 100% chance I'm going to be able to do it either.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to look at it as an investment. And if I'm going to invest a lot of time and energy into, let's say, training for something, but it could be any goal, really. How far do I want to set that goal? And am I going to grow from it? Am I going to learn from it? Is it going to set myself up to be able to hit perhaps another long-term goal sometime in the future? Is that a stepping stone that can help me get there? As opposed to just jumping straight to the long-term goal and perhaps failing, and then it demotivates me to ever try for it ever again. So yeah, I like to try and incrementally get there.
So how did we're talking about incrementally getting there, but how did running become ultra running and running across Florida and running 100 miles? I mean, like, as having a track background and only having ever done like 50K races, I can't even wrap my head around doing 100 miles.
I guess I just started. I would say the half marathon is probably the race that I did where I guess didn't think I can do it in a way. It's not that I didn't have confidence going into it, but it was a question mark. Am I going to be able to do this today? And when I did that, I remember I crossed the finish line and I said right away, I want to do the marathon next year. And that again was something that when I showed up to run it, I thought, I don't know if I can do this today.
So the thing that's attracting you is not the race itself. It's the feeling that you're extending yourself into a sort of gray zone between a gimme and an impossible.
Yeah, exactly. Well put. Yeah. And surprising myself. I've learned to just, what it's taught me over the years too, and it's applicable in life, is that it's taught me to believe in myself a little more than I maybe have in the past with things like this.
Does that become because we as runners, we see all the time, first 5K, somebody achieves their first 5K and then they go, okay, 10K, okay, half marathon. Oh, next year I'm going to try a marathon. And normal, sensible people kind of stop at that point. They go, tick. But it seems like there are a breed of people who go, okay, well, so what's the one after that? And what's the one after that? Are you one of these breeds of people? And are you looking at, like, does it go on forever until you try, I don't know, something that you just keep failing on?
It could very well be the case. I think what's attracted me most in running is distance. It's usually it could be broken down into distance or speed, and usually one gives if the other one, so Liz is you're probably attracted to speed with track, and I've always, I guess, gravitated away from the intensity, and I kind of like the slow running long. Yeah, I've just kind of continued to take it into the next distance. Maybe, if something was a bit of a shock to me, I'll stay at that distance for a few times and repeat it a few more times. And then when I think, I think I might be ready to take it up a notch, I give it a try. But yeah, but that's the question, Alan, where is that point?
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you. Yeah.
Have you looked at Lake Tahoe or something like that, which is, I guess it's 200 miles, is it? I saw Courtney Dauwalter on YouTube running Lake Tahoe, 200 miles, and now she's talking about 500 miles.
Yeah, I've heard the 200 is the new 100, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking, wow, I'm
Wow.
still at the 100. I'm pretty good here for right now, And yeah, I mean, maybe it never ends. There's people paving the way for me, and I hope, I'm guiding some people in.
There's actually something that as much as like I have a hard time with trail because I do like the whole numbers and have like seeing a fast splits and seeing a
Uh-huh.
fast time.
Yeah.
But the one thing about trail running that seems to be sort of very apparent in the way everybody talks about it, and even like in the few experiences I had, was how much of a community it is. Like the races, I don't know if it's because the races are smaller, or is it because you guys run so long and it's so hard and you're all suffering together. But it seems like there's uh like it's more than just the run.
Mhm.
Do you think that could be why people end up doing these like 100 miles, is because you end up, it's almost like being part of a team?
True. True. Yeah, what I've gathered from talking with so many ultra runners at races, and yeah, I just think it's a like mindset. I think we can, we have a lot in common when it comes to the mindset. I think it, to make all
Yeah,
of
you're
us
all crazy.
yeah, gravitate towards this. For us to gravitate towards this, we're like-minded. And I think to have that in common is kind of cool.
To take my "you're all crazy" statement, and just I apologize for that. But let's just boil it down a little bit in
Mhm.
terms of people who do this. Do you think they have to have a sort of special obsessive nature or something in their character that is, they want to test their absolute limits, or they have some kind of inner demon that's driving them? Be it you see people who've had problems in their life who turn to this by way of throwing their energy into that. Does everyone who's in the this kind of community have some sort of mental trait that's or inner demon that's kind of almost required to make you want to do this?
I feel everybody's different. Something is driving everybody, something drives everybody to get up and go to work every day. And something drives everybody to chase their goals and their dreams. And yeah, I do feel some people, we mentioned type A personality and things of that nature. There's a drive there. I feel it's all positive. We're all out there doing something positive. There's people, unfortunately, in this world who channel a lot of that type of energy into negativity.
Hmm.
And I feel, hey, if I have all of this energy that I want to channel into something, it's positive. It's sending a positive message. It might inspire, motivate somebody else to do something positive. I think we could all use some more positivity in the world, and yeah, we're out there having fun.
That's well said. I think, yeah, I think you're right about that. I mean, runners are, seem crazy, but we don't hurt anyone. And, when we don't do anything that bothers others, really, I mean, so why not just encourage that? And we get fun out of it. So, it's win-win for everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, speaking of motivation, some people, they get very, very motivated by collecting these. And I think this is why a lot of people end up in the marathon distance or the half marathon distance and kind of stay there for a long time, because we have teammates that they collect the bling. So they collect that
Uh-huh.
medal. I don't know what they do with it afterwards, but I know that if you had your way, you would have probably a big display
Yeah.
in your office, but your wife won't let you. So
Yeah, she limited it. Yeah, yeah. Right. No, I love the finisher medals and the belt buckles. They bring memories. I can take a look at some and it jogs memories from that race or that time in my life or the people I met along the way. They're colorful, they look nice, and my family's always, let me see the medal. I want when I finish a
yeah,
race, let me see the medal.
I bet your kids, they probably love that. They want to see the medal, right?
Yep, yep.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that your wife got you like a spot to put your medals, and just for all the other listeners that are collecting medals and their spouses maybe don't agree with their medal collections, maybe you can share your strategy on what how you manage this situation about the limited space.
Yeah, I do think it got to be too many. And I guess at that time, she felt she had to put her foot down and draw the line somewhere. So she was nice. She bought a nice rack, to hang on the wall, and this is it, so now I pick and choose which ones do I want to display. So it's usually the most recent, but I got some favorite races in there too.
You talk about as well a difference between belt buckles, which traditionally are given for ultra runs, 100 milers, um, versus medals. I think in the book you say that a medal's a bit of a personal achievement, and a belt buckle feels like a team achievement because it's a team effort.
Definitely the belt buckles, there's some unsupported races, there's some solo races. Some people, they want to do it alone and that's their goal. And my goal, I like to bring some friends and family along, and I like to just try and get through the accomplishment as an inclusive unit, and we all come together, we all chip in. It's an adventure. I tell them all, when I'm asking and trying to recruit people, I tell them I can't guarantee you fun, but I can guarantee you an adventure. And that's what it is.
Are these usually like other runners, or do you ever manage to like recruit your non-running family or friends?
So my brother's gotten into ultra running now. He's done quite a few himself, so he definitely helps out with some of the longer distance pacing and all that. But a lot of my friends, they're not runners, but they're in good shape. They're therapists. They stay in shape. They exercise, so they'll tag along a few miles and then switch off, and usually 2-3 miles, and it's great. And then we just rotate guys in and out, and they have fun, and I got some company and people to talk to and people to curse at once in a while when things get tough. And but we have fun out there. Yeah.
For people who don't run ultras, can you talk to us a little bit about the benefit of having pacers? Because at the end of the day, you've got to run all the miles yourself.
Uh-huh.
So whether it's somebody running next to you or not, doesn't make any difference. You got to take every single step the same. Except people do say that it's crucial to have pacers, and if you don't have them, you won't make it. And I would never have made it if it wasn't for this guy running next to me. So what is it?
I think it's a big psychological advantage. It could be an advantage. I'll say this: it could be an advantage if you have the right people with you, if they're people that know you, if they're people that pick up on social cues, and they talk to you when you want to talk, and they leave you alone when you want to be left alone. But you're absolutely right in the sense that I got to put in every step myself at the end of the day. And I do remember a distinct point. It was during the Daytona 100 where I just had it. I could have been at mile 85 maybe, but everybody was just standing around and I didn't need anything from them. They didn't really have a task at that moment. I needed some time, but it was me that had to stand up, and it was me that had to continue. And I remember thinking, I have all this help, but the only thing I need help on is taking another step. And that's one thing they can't do for me. So you're absolutely right. I got to put in all the steps myself, but I do think having somebody to talk to, somebody to, you know, just kind of be with, can kind of take the mind off of what's going on as well. So that could help.
And it just, I guess it just re-emphasizes that the process is as much mental as it is physical, because what the
Right.
pacer kind of gives you, based on what you've just told me, is really a possibility to have a better mental scenario.
Yeah, because sometimes for me, there's sections in those ultras, very long sections, like your story in the beginning, where hey, it's long walks for could be hours sometimes, and so yeah, they're called pacers, but they're not really pacing me minutes per mile per se, running. You know, we're not doing any running. It's more of a mental thing. How do I keep going through those tough times? So having some company can help.
Yeah, it doesn't sound very macho to call them child psychologists.
Yeah, I like that.
You did mention that planning an ultra is a lot of work, but before we get into that, you have to train for the ultra. And in the book, you talk about cross training a little bit, which is actually really good, because I think a lot of runners, they just want to run, but there could be some benefits to cross training. The one thing I took away was when you said that instead of going for a 50K run on a Saturday, what you could do is precede that with strength training and then go for a 30K run on very tired legs. So I don't know if you like what role does cross training have in your own training?
So I like cross training because it throws something different at my body, and maybe some cross training that closely mimics what could benefit my running, of course. It alleviates some of the pounding, some of the mileage. Some people call them junk miles, maybe eliminate some junk miles and get some different kind of training in there. You know, I kind of feel if I get some strength training in, I'm definitely challenging the muscles in a different way than if I were to go out there and do the same run at the same pace at the same time. And just getting creative with the training and seeing what works, what doesn't. Over the years, I've learned to kind of keep what I feel has helped me and kind of toss what doesn't help me. And training is about experimentation. And one thing I've found, I don't know if it's too common, but one thing I like to do is do some strength training before a run. And I weaken the legs with those exercises. Strengthening is a weakening process. We don't get stronger until we rest and recover. So I take the weak legs out there after some strength training and I put in some miles. And I found it can feel a bit similar to how it is at the very end of a race. And I've also thought about that in training. I'm never really at the end of a race. I'm always doing a training run fresh and recovered and energized. And, I could be hydrated and plentiful with calories. And so to just try and eliminate a lot of those factors and then go for my run to kind of mimic how it would be like late in the race. And I feel when I get late in the race, I feel it's familiar. I've been through it and I know my legs work and I can just, try and keep using them.
I guess it's another way of sort of doing back-to-back runs or double up runs, but sparing your legs a little more maybe.
Yeah, I like to toss different things in. I'll do my back-to-backs. And then I like to try and achieve the same training effect or try to apply the same amount of stress, but in different ways, just try and diversify the training.
Yeah, one of the things Liz and I have just finished an 18-week marathon training program that was the toughest marathon training program we've ever done. And one of the things we noticed, because it was above what we normally do from a training point of view, because we were trying to race at a speed that was above what we normally do.
Uh-huh.
One of the things we noticed was we actually got really fatigued during the training, and that was for a marathon. So we're doing probably less mileage or less time on feet than you would for an ultra. Is one of the dangers of the training or one of the challenges of the training, trying to stop yourself from fatiguing out? Or because you got to get up again the next day, you got to, every day you've got to do something. And if you start to get continual fatigue, it could hurt your training. You know, you get an overtrain syndrome. Is that a big danger for ultra training?
I mean, it could be for anybody, even people training for a 5K. And the training, it seems you're talking about, involves probably a lot more intensity than I would be using for possibly the higher mileage I'm trying to achieve. So I do feel, and one of the points I tried to make in the book is it's all a balance. So yeah, we want to try and obviously reap the most benefit out of training, but without crossing that line you're talking about with burnout and fatigue. So yeah, and it's through intensity, frequency, duration, you know, as long as we balance those things out.
One of the things that I got seriously wrong in the story that I gave at the start of the podcast was nutrition. That's clearly going to be an important thing because you're going to go round the clock. So you need to get several meals worth of nutrition, I guess. How do you deal with that? What's your training program for that?
And also the types of foods, because like marathoners, we just have to worry about gel. You guys, you have to worry about hamburgers and soup and all kinds of
protein,
things. Protein.
Bottle of wine, a couple of beers.
Well, maybe the beer's not a good idea.
Yeah, no, that's probably one of the toughest things too. I mean, aside from the distance itself, we have to have energy to do it. And getting the calories in one way or another is it can be a challenge, like we talked about earlier. That could be the biggest challenge towards the end of an ultra, is trying to keep eating, because so many things happen. I mean, let's say 100-mile race, fatigue, you know, nausea, just out of it, don't want to do it anymore. There's so many things that can be affecting appetite. And yeah, it's trying to continue to eat even when you're not hungry to be able to keep going.
And how do you even plan for that? Because it seems like, you know, in marathoning, well, you use either gel or you use some kind of drink with carbohydrate, and there are calculators you can get. And, you know, there's the theory about the 60 to 90 grams of carbohydrate per hour, and you don't have to worry about any of the other macronutrients. But for you, because you're out there sometimes for, you know, at least 12 hours, if not 24 or even longer. I mean, how do you plan your nutrition for those types of events?
Yeah, some of the runners that are just really, really well at the sport, elite, I mean, they've got their calories down by the hour. And I just haven't got there yet. You know, where I'm at now is, if I can get a nutrition plan down for the first half of the race, I feel like that's going to set me up for the possibility of a successful second half of the race. One thing I've learned too is I try to go by feel with not only pace and just how everything is going in the second half, because the second half is hard to train for. I don't know how I'm going to be feeling. I don't know what problems I may be dealing with. And I don't know how the stomach might be. So it's kind of hard to commit to a plan for the second half of the race. I feel sometimes doing that may just apply more pressure and stress if I'm not able to follow it. So I like to leave it open. I feel, you know, I know a lot of the foods that sit well and work for me. So I do follow my schedule, perhaps the first half of the race, if everything is going well. Second half of the race, I just have all my options. So whatever I may be wanting or needing, or whatever I can stomach, is what I go for.
Do you have any particular foods that you orientate towards?
It changes every year, and I'll be honest, the one consistent thing that I have learned is to steer away from heavy sugar, especially in hot races. In these hot races, I've learned that can throw my stomach. So I try to stay away from the sugar. But yeah, it's meals. It's not gels for me anymore. It may be meals. So it might be sandwiches. Sometimes, you know, it's some peanut butter sandwiches, maybe with some banana inside. It could be turkey sandwich with some mayo, just things that I know are kind of bland in a way, but can kind of provide some calories, and it can be eaten. Sometimes if it's really hot, it's hard to chew if I'm dehydrated. So then I may turn to a liquid diet in that case, and coconut water might do it for me through the rest of the day. So it could change.
Okay, I guess for our listeners, if there are people who haven't done any ultras, some events that I've done that are sort of baby ultra distances, the aid stations are like buffets. Yeah, I remember coming in Vermont somewhere into an aid station, and they were saying, "Oh, would you like chicken cacciatore or just a cheese sandwich?" And I was saying, "Oh, what kind of cheese is it?" "Oh, well, it's local Vermont cheese." And oh, that looks rather good. And we were having this debate about, all the various foodstuffs that they had, which is, I think, is one of the glorious things of running ultras, just coming into a finely stocked aid station. One, they're like oasis in the desert, but two, it's not gels and water. It's, everything.
Yeah. It's also a place to stop and chat for a lot of people.
Yeah,
If they're
true.
ready for a break, if they just need some time and they grab something to eat and they hang out, it takes the mind away from some of the grind and gives them a fresh start when they keep going. Yeah.
In chapter 5, you talk about in ultra races and doing the runs. You talk about sort of almost two start lines: the beginning, when you start fresh and full of nervous energy, and you're probably trying to just pour on cold water on yourself in terms of mentally, in terms of keep your pace low, but you also talk about the race really starts at the breaking point, and this can be a moving target. Well, talk to us about both the starts, the very beginning, and what's this breaking point.
Yeah, I've learned that when I start a race, I'm full of energy, I'm at my strongest, I'm hyped, I'm ready, and it feels good. And it could feel good for quite some time, quite some miles. And then, in the middle of the race, that starts to fade away, and it starts to introduce a bit of the challenge and kind of what we signed up for. And then the challenge lies, I feel the starting line, the other starting line lies, it could be somewhere different for everybody in the race, but that's where I feel is the real starting line, is when I just feel I've got nothing left. I'm beat. The body's done. I feel I can't go on. I've always proved myself wrong, but nonetheless, that's where I feel I just can't go on. And that's where the true challenge lies, between that particular point and the finish. And I feel that's where the true battle is. That's where the starting point is. So sometimes when I'm feeling great in a race, I try to remind myself, don't get too excited. It hasn't started yet.
Are there like more than one of those kind of starting lines? Because I've often heard ultra runners say, like, sometimes you feel good and then you don't feel good, and then you feel good and then you don't feel good. So is there really like, is that kind of like breaking point when you don't feel good, or is it like another level of not feeling good?
There's definitely ups and downs, and where that second starting point is, I guess, where that real challenge lies. There could be a few more ups and downs. It's hard telling. And yeah, those are the challenges. And if there's 3 or 4 ups and downs in the last 20 miles of the 100-mile race, that's for me the heart of the race, where I learned the most, where the most growth was in that case in the last 20 miles. Yep.
And how do you control your mindset when you're when you're just feeling that bad? Do you have any tricks? Or
Yeah, I go through negative thoughts as well, and that's part of the challenge. I do feel that is one of the main challenges perhaps in ultra running, is being able to steer myself out of that, having to pull out of that. And it could be, it's not just maybe having negative thoughts due to the race not going my way. It could be just because I let my mind wander and I started thinking about some resentments or other things. I mean, it could get kind of boring out there, or it could be because the stomach has turned on me and I trained 6 months for this race, and the race is not going my way, and I'm rejecting food and water, and it's a hot day and I got a long way to go, that can definitely do some damage on the mind. And if I don't pull out of that, I may not make it to the finish line. So yeah, it's up to me. I feel the mind can turn into a positive direction quicker than the stomach. But yeah, if I don't steer that mind ultimately in the direction it needs to go, I don't know if I'll make it to the finish.
Are there some specific things that you lean towards when it starts to get tough? Do you have, I don't know, a mantra or something?
I try to remind myself why I signed up for the challenge to begin with, because it can be easily forgotten when all hell breaks loose. And that's usually something that I try to think about through training, and the why for this particular race can change throughout over time and over the years and even throughout training. It's something I try to think about during training, and I try to have that there and ready for me so that when things get bad, I try to think, now, why am I here? What is it that I want? I try to remind myself, if I can just make it to the finish, that is what's waiting for me.
In some cases, I guess this is where the pacers and your crew can help you out.
Yeah, they can help me get out of myself as well. That's why it's important maybe to bring some people along that know you well. They may pick up on, hey, he's not being very positive, or he's kind of getting down on himself, and that's not really the point of what's going on. And let's get out of this. Let's keep moving here, and just steer the conversation somewhere else. Redirect the mind.
So let's say once you've gotten your volunteers for your crew and your pacers for the 100-mile race that you decided to sign up for, what's it like to plan for all of that? Because it seems like they need to be carrying certain things for you. They need to be, at certain locations that you will know ahead of time. It seems like sometimes they can do certain things to help you out. Like, let's say they can, remind you of your why if you've forgotten it and you're looking kind of down and like you want to quit. So what's it like to plan for these races and to have to plan not just for yourself and for what you're going to do, but also you're almost planning for your crew as well?
Yeah, I definitely work all that into my strategy. And so I tend to look at the race as a whole and think to myself, who do I have? How many people do I have? What is it that and I communicate with them. What is it that you think you can give me? What is it that you want to do? How much time do you think you can? Some people have met for the day only, but they've had to head out. So I tend to try to get some kind of commitment out of them as to what they're wanting to help with, what they think they can help me with, and try to work it all in like a puzzle. If I have, a few guys and they can give me, let's say, 10 to 15 miles a piece, maybe I want to do the first 35 or 40 miles by myself and then start to work them in throughout the night and all. So yeah, it's definitely just coming up with a team collective approach and working it into the strategy as a whole.
One of the things about 100-mile races, because I've got some friends who do these kind of things. I sort of look at them from a distance and go, yeah, I'm not convinced that I'm working myself up towards a 100-mile run. I'm not sure that they're having fun. Sometimes, if you watch them at the start, they're all full of energy and super excited, but we all are at all races. And I guess if you see them at the end, they're probably a little bit happy, but usually you don't see them when they're running through the night or when they're in their darker moments. But when you do see those pictures, not very many people look very happy. Courtney Dauwalter is an exception. I think she manages to keep positive and smiles her way through these things. I guess for the uninitiated, could you explain to me and us mere mortals and our listeners, what does it feel like to complete a 100-mile race? Maybe been going constantly for 30 plus hours, maybe through 2 nights.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've done some really hot races, and honestly, it's taken some heat training to even be able to tolerate getting through the day and all. And you're absolutely right. There's a portion in there that I mean, it's just suffering. There's just no other word that I can think of for certain portions of the race. Could be very long portions of the race. And it's definitely something to endure. And I do feel there's a lot to learn, putting myself in a position where I'm forced to endure a certain amount of suffering. And I definitely don't want to shape it to be that way, because that doesn't sound very appealing, you know. But you're right. You know, if somebody were to take a look at me at mile 85, it wouldn't really sell them on doing the race. But I do have to say, it's temporary. The negativity that can come along with it, the pain, the suffering to endure, things like that, it's temporary. But what I feel I gain from it most is what I can take into life from these events. For me, that's what lasts years, and it helps me in life. I'm going through some tough times with the family now, and I have to say it's the mindset that's keeps me going. And it's a matter of pulling myself out of hard times mentally and try to focus on the positive. That's ultimately, I think that's what ultra running helps me with the most is, you know, it teaches me what kind of mindset I'd like to have through life.
And when you get to the finish line, is the feeling of elation just magnified because of the things you've overcome during the period, or are you just so worn out you just can't register that you've finished? It's almost like, okay, I can stop moving now, but that's all I can register. Or do you just feel like totally elated?
Yeah, I felt both. I felt
Okay.
extreme elation, and I felt like, oh my God, I'm so glad this is done. And it's kind of a weird feeling just coming to sometimes it's a weird feeling coming to a finish line. It's like, man, I've had the adrenaline going for 27 hours straight, just nonstop adrenaline. I gotta go, I gotta go, I gotta keep moving. And then to just come to a finish line and try to turn it off is kind of a weird feeling. But I do have to say, yeah, that elation, usually what it boils down for me at the finish line is, wow, I can't believe I got here. I really can't believe I got here. I didn't know if I had it in me that day at the start. You know, yeah, I've done some before that, but every starting line I get to, I don't know if I'm going to get to the finish. It's a long way and anything can happen. And so, yeah, I've experienced extreme elation and wow, I can't believe I got here kind of feeling.
All of this stuff is in your book, and we can read it all the way through. But what message are you hoping to get across from all of this stuff, apart from just, here's my experience and here's some knowledge?
Sure. I guess the main message I wanted to convey and get out there is the fact that we can do anything we set our mind to if we're determined, if we're driven, if we have the patience to tolerate the timeline it may take to get there. I believe consistency is key. And if we consistently work at it, you know, month after month, year after year, you know, we can get to where we want to go. Yeah, just I've surprised myself, and I just felt like I had something to share, something positive to share. And it would be that, you know, we can do a lot more than we think we're capable of.
That's a good message. I like that. I like to think that, by creating these small, a little bit scary goals, one by one, you kind of, you hop from one little stone to the next. And one day, well, you end up achieving the goal that you never thought possible, maybe 5 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
So where is the best place for people to find a copy of your book?
I would say on Amazon.com. That way, you know, I've sold some internationally. I personally, it's tough to ship internationally. So Amazon.com would be the best way to go. But in the US, you know, if you visit gotheultramile.com and order my book and send me a message, I'd love to personalize it and sign it for you. So Amazon or gotheultramile.com.
And when you become a super famous ultra runner, people will then have signed copies of your book that are worth a fortune. So it's a great investment.
It is. And where can people find out what you're doing next? Because you do some exciting things like 100-mile races, which are pretty impressive.
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram at gotheultramile. And there I do posts. I post about my training. I post about the races I do, and it's all positive. So follow along.
And you do coaching. If people want to try and use your coaching skills, can they get contact you through gotheultramile.com?
Yes, that's where they can find any information, and that's where you can find out how to contact me. Send me an email, send me a message through Instagram. I love networking and talking with people, meeting people. If you have any questions for me, and I do offer coaching services for anybody interested in achieving their goals.
Okay, fantastic.
So I think that this book was a great overview of running in general and some specifics about training and racing ultra distances. The book is great for someone who thinks they would like to run an ultra and doesn't know where to start with their training. One idea I found interesting, like I mentioned earlier, was the weight training idea before a run, so that your legs are already tired before you go for a run, and that way, you can you don't have to run quite as much if, let's say you're somebody that's injury prone, or if you're just building up to new distances. I thought that this was a fantastic idea. I'd never thought of something like that. Yeah. And maybe I should give it a try before my next ultra trail run, which is not going to be 100 miles. But I think this could definitely be helpful for me. And Tim provides some insight into what happens during a 100-mile race, like how it feels, what kind of things he did to get himself through the wall, and what responsibilities he gave his crew. I think if anybody is planning to do an ultra 100-mile race distance and, will be kind of needing to think about these things, it's a great resource for that.
From my point of view, I think the book basically covers all the bases regarding running. It doesn't cover them in huge depth in terms of the general running information, but it does cover all the bases. So then you could take the piece that you want and then go and get a book with more detail on it if you wanted. And it's very factually solid. I noticed you didn't list any references, but you've obviously done quite a bit of research. I saw the point, for example, on actually if you run, it helps prevent you getting Alzheimer's or dementia. And I thought, oh, really? So you said, Tim, but I'm not going to take that as fact. So I'll just go to my super reference Google and check you out. And sure enough, there are quite a few articles. It's a well-known, established fact that you can help yourself with respect to, mentally aging and staving off dementia and Alzheimer's through running. So good stuff, factually solid. It's a great book if you think you might want to go the extra distance or take on an extra challenge, because it tells you the things to look out for and gives you the things you'll need to practice and look out for. It's also a short, easy read. It doesn't dwell too much on any one single running subject, and it keeps moving. So it has a good pace to it. So it makes it very easy to read. So it's cool from that point of view. And I think, Tim, you talk about yourself and your own experiences in the book, but it's not really about you. The book's not about you. It's very running focused. And I think, well, readers who like biographies, it's not your biography. So readers who like running information, it's more that kind of thing. And I think most people will probably appreciate that. That's my thoughts.
Thank you, Tim, for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited that you guys invited me on and that we connected, and I really appreciate your time reading the book and giving me some feedback. It's been great meeting you both, and I hope we keep in touch.
We should for your next book, if ever you have another book coming out later. I mean,
yeah. Also, if we ever go the distance, the big bad distance, we can get some tips from you too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We'll definitely let you know.
Anytime.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Running Book Reviews. Big thank you to Tim for providing a review copy of the book and for agreeing to chat with us today. If you'd like to leave us feedback about how we can improve the podcast or want to suggest a book that you'd like us to review in a future episode, please leave us a comment on social media. We are Running Book Reviews on Facebook and Instagram. On Twitter, we are reviews_running. Please follow us on social media to find out about the new episodes when we release them, or you can just subscribe to the podcast on your favorite streaming platform. Bye for now.
Bye.